Check, check, check. Check, 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 check. Test, 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 test. Checkity, check, 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 check. Okay, I am live. I'm going to do test, 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 test. Do something a little different where I actually post on Twitter, even though I have like no followers on Twitter. I'm just gonna be like live art stream. Get in here, everybody. Oh, live art stream. Working on some freelance. Come hang out. Oi, there's a guy that I follow on Twitter named Dave Mullins. Forget how I know that guy. I don't know him like personally, but uh, he's won an Oscar before though. But he says uh, posted this 1 minute ago. Snow White is a $1 billion loss for Disney. $1 billion. They won't make my, they won't make my stupid little comic book into a movie, but they'll regurgitate crap from the 1930s, make a shittier version of it, and then they'll lose a ton of money, and they'll just keep doing that repeatedly. But they won't make like independent little, it would make a lot more sense for Disney to just like pay dumbasses like me like $500,000 and make a little animated film that could potentially make millions and millions for them. Put it on Disney Plus, or have a limited theatrical release. Um, but they don't do that. They try to remake Snow White, a legendary film, and then they lose $1 billion, and they're like, "What happened?" That's hilarious. Here, I'll swap over to that so you can see what I'm talking about. There it is. Yeah, look at that. Snow White, closer to $1 billion loss for Disney. Here's why. $400 million. What did the money go for? A remarkable thing about 2025 is that like I I don't think I've even seen a trailer for this. You would think that spending $1 billion on some big remake would get it in front of eyeballs, but I mean, I this is what I do. I draw. I watch the Nintendo Direct. I don't really watch TV. Football's over. Football's pretty much the only sport that I watch. Uh, there was that show on Adult Swim, Common Side Effects. I watched that. Did not see a trailer for Snow White. I had seen like an ad though somewhere. Like I knew it existed. I mostly just saw people complaining about it, honestly. People complain about everything. That's another thing about 2025 that drives me insane. Like the Switch 2 gets announced, everybody's happy, and then it's like, "Ugh, it's too expensive. Ugh, ugh, they finally caught up to like PlayStation 4. Ugh." Oh, everybody can go die. Just go die, everybody. I like this laptop because you can zoom in. It's really only Dell laptops and Macs that allow you to do that. Anyways, uh, there's my live stream. So let me minimize that. Let me bring this in. Let me zoom this out. Hold on one moment. There, I think that's good. Okay, so today I confirmed with the client. She's good with this. I'm just gonna kind of wrap it up. You can probably hear my cat scratching around in the litter box. Sorry about that. I don't need my history on. You can't see that. That's kind of cool. I like that you can just kind of isolate it to just the drawing part. So yeah, I confirmed with clientele that this is good. Um, the only thing is like there's not really a lot of legibility uh, with the S and the B. And she did want the S and the B to be pretty obvious. But I mean, the S and B stands for skirts and boots. So I mean, I don't know. There's a skirt, there's a boot. Anywho, I'm going to start inking. My inking technique. If you watched any of my other streams, you've already seen me ink. Essentially, I just make a pure black. I like to. It's funny. I have like a 100% for opacity and flow. I honestly don't know what the difference is between flow and opacity. Like if you set flow to 0, huh, that actually gives you a kind of nice texture. That's interesting. When you set opacity to, well, you can't set it to 0. Huh. That'll give you just a pure black line. Interesting. Okay. I like to set it to pretty low, usually around 7 pixels. I might do 9 today since this is kind of a big image. Nice straight lines. Maybe 11. And then turn my eraser to the exact same thing. Make it a bit bigger though. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm actually going to use pure black. I think I'll do a. I think I'll do a blue actually, like something like this. Ink it in blue. That way I can tinker with the colors later. I'm gonna try to find something to watch too. Um, Cats want to play. Okay, well these guys got a Switch 2 event. Here, I'll turn this on in the in the background now that I know how to do the mini viewer thing, mini player thing. All right, let's move that. Get this out of the way. Move this up here. Turn that on, and then whoop, I wish you could zoom out of this thing. Hang on. Uh, that's good enough. I'm trying to make it the same size as my head. Okay, so this is Good Vibes Gaming. I'm gonna probably turn it down just a little bit.
You might have noticed that Brandon and I were missing during the Switch to Direct hype, and it turns out there's a very good reason for that. Both Brandon and myself have been in New York playing the console all day. We have gone hands on with the Switch 2 right after the Nintendo Direct aired, actually. So we weren't able to be there because we were there in person. Uh, we did what sensible people would do. When Nintendo extended us an invitation, we booked a plane ticket and flew across the country to spend the better part of a day playing Nintendo's new console. And I think we have a lot to say about it. And honestly, if you're coming here for a hot take, you're probably not going to find one. I think our impressions are mostly positive.
And yeah, and to be clear, this is coming from a completely hands-on impressions perspective. Um, the guys uh, back at the ranch have already been talking about all the finer details of price and stuff like that. But for us, it's all about the experience.
Yeah, we picked up the console. The first thing that we were able to do was actually hold the Switch 2 in our hands. There were several demo stations set up throughout the experience, which is, to my understanding, exactly the same one that the public is going to be able to experience, although we had a much longer session. But when you walk in, the very first thing are functional but inoperable Switch 2 consoles, if that makes sense. There's hardware in them, they're not dummy units, and we were able to take the Joy-Con off, snap them back on, kind of get a feel for how the console feels in the hand. And honestly stress tested a bit. One of the first things I did at Nintendo's own encouraging, I tried to rip a Joy-Con off. I tried not with all my strength, but what I would call an
A lot of people had
unreasonable amount of force. And
trouble with Joy Cons and whatnot. Uh, my original Switch that I bought back in 2017, I think it was a launch unit. I bought it very early on. I don't remember. It's funny because 2017 was 8 years ago. And I don't remember if I ordered it like immediately or if I waited to see if it was any good or not. Um, but I got one. It was the red and blue one. There was a gray one and there was a red and blue one. I got the red and blue one, and I had zero problem with it. Like I played most of Breath of the Wild with the red and blue Joy Cons, and then the OLED came out in what, like 2021, 2020? I don't remember. And yeah, I'm an idiot, so I'm like, ah, yeah, I immediately get the OLED one, and I worked it out so that I could sell my old one with some of the accessories and stuff, and get the new OLED one, and only spend about $100 for the difference. And so I put my original Switch on eBay, which was in great condition. Like I don't really I don't go crazy with video games. Like I try not to break my controller even if I'm like frustrated or whatever. And so I put it on eBay and I wasn't really getting a lot of bites. And so I told my Discord server that I was selling it. And one of my oldest friends, a guy that I've known since we were like 8 or 9 years old, he's like, "Oh, I'll buy it," and he literally bought it off eBay. If he would have told me he was interested, I could have just, given it to him. But he bought it. I think he's spent like 200 something dollars on it. I forget. And he gets it, and I don't know what game he played, but he immediately broke the fucking Joy Cons. I just immediately broke them. Um, they immediately had Joy-Con drift. I never had drift with any of them. In fact, I don't have. I've got like 40 controllers, and I don't have drift on any of them except for one. But that's like a manufacturer defect. Um, it's actually a PlayStation 4 controller that has drift. But sometimes you just get a bad joystick. But none of my sticks have ever had drift. Um, but he gets it, and he immediately has drift problems. But see, I also used to play Marvel versus Capcom with him, and we would, pass the controller around and whatnot. And God, he was so hard on controllers. He was one of those guys that he would so furiously button mash that he would accidentally push like the home button on the 360 controller. Like that was the big X button, and we'd go back to out to the main menu every time he was getting frustrated because I was kicking his ass. So I'm pretty sure people who have drift problems and they break their Joy Cons off their Switch, they're just fucking Neanderthals. That's essentially all it is. Um, if you're gentle with it, if you realize that breaking your controller doesn't make you better at the game, the people are just, they're emotional creatures. Uh, so yeah, I never had any issues with it. And honestly, I don't have my Switch up here right now, but um, I've got these things called a MOBA pad. Let me show you a picture of my setup if I can find it. I just sent a picture in my Discord. Bu- 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 Yada-da-da-da. I'll show you this real quick because this is pretty damn sick. So that right there is my setup for playing Xenoblade X. This is called a MOBA pad. You have to order them from China. I think you have to order the FlyDigi from China too. There might be American retailers now. I don't know. I had to order them from China. They're relatively expensive. I think. God, how expensive is this? I got a phone call. I'm not answering that though. I don't know who that is. Um, I think that's actually uh, the University of Austin, Texas. A long story. Um, I think they were trying to get me to sign up for something. But I think the MOBA pad was, I don't know, maybe $100. This thing was probably 150, but it's worth every penny though. This is called the FlyDigi Apex 4, and this is called the MOBA pad version 2 HD, I think. And if you notice, it's probably hard to see on stream, but this has got the Xbox layout, although it's very subtle. Like it's got A, B, X, Y. And of course, this has got X, Y, A, B. Um, Hang on, let me check and see what this voicemail is all about. Yep, I signed up for some data analytics class, and man, they are all about trying to get me to sign up for that. I haven't actually paid anything for it, but they just really want me to learn about data analytics. Yeah, I'm kind of I'm job hunting right now, so I'm like, yeah, I should probably like learn a skill that I can like make a lot of money on by doing the same kind of stupid shit that I do anyways. Um, but it's all right. I've already actually got a job, so fine. This is probably one of the last times I stream because next week I start a job. But anyways, so these guys are great. Both of these controllers have Hall effect sticks. They're both the D pads are both clicky. They both use mechanical switches uh, for the face buttons as well and the shoulder buttons. So everything's clicky like a mouse. It's rated for like millions and millions of clicks. Uh, and again, I'm pretty gentle with my stuff. Like, both of these are a year or two old at least. This came out last year. This came out like 2 years ago. Looks pretty good. I took this picture like when Xenoblade came out, and they're still pretty fresh. So I don't know what these people are doing that are breaking their Joy Cons, but I never really had an issue. Also, the MOBA pad. The reason why I brought that up was because the MOBA pad, it is the most secure Joy-Con you can put into the Switch. Like it's designed so that when you click it in there, it's actually really hard to get out, and it does not move. It's solid. So I mean, just don't ever take them off, essentially. And you don't really need to, because like I said, you can just use a controller if you want to play. If you want to play it like hooked up to your TV or whatever. I have too many Switch controllers. Like, for real. Like one day I'll play downstairs, like I play a game or something and stream, just so you can see my setup. It's pretty gnarly. Um, I am a I am a giant man child with all the Nintendo things. Anyways, let's listen to these guys. I've actually played the Switch too.
I couldn't budget.
You also did the dangle test. Like you were hanging the switch from your fingers
I
by
don't know
one
if
of
you
the
guys can
Joy
hear it
Cons,
or not.
and
I'm gonna
it was
turn it up
fine.
just a little bit.
Yeah, there wasn't even a hint of separation. If you watched the direct, you know that is because, and this actually surprised me, the SL and SR buttons are made of metal. They are the magnets that hold the entire thing together. So they put some chonky, like substantial magnets into the Joy-Con. I truly
Tort
wasn't
tort.
expecting that.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it's going
the
nuts.
buttons themselves are also much like wider than they were on Switch One Joy Cons. Like those were like the M and M's of buttons on Joy-Con One, and really hard to press. But they're so much wider, and there's more surface area, and pressing the buttons
These lines are
feels
very,
so
very
much
messy, but
better.
I'm just trying to get them down. I'll
Yeah,
clean them up
they
later.
clearly focused on comfort a bit more this time around with the Switch 2 Joy-Con
These
over the
little
Joy-Con
ink
2. Uh,
this
buttons
big.
have a bit more
This is
surface
a
area,
really
but they
big
have
ink.
the same really nice
Usually my
tactility to
lines are a
them
lot
that the
smaller.
Switch 1
I have a
buttons
lot more
had. Like a,
control
a
over it.
short but satisfying click to each button. And I was really impressed with just how nice the finish of the overall console feels in the hand. Like it had almost a satin type finish that the Switch 1 doesn't have.
you, you probably see
Yeah,
her running around back
it
there.
felt so much more
She's
premium than
right
the
there.
original
There
Switch
she
One
goes.
base model,
She's crazy.
and even more so than the Switch OLED, which is a pretty big leap over the original in terms of feel, especially on that new
What are you
chassis
doing to
for the
her?
tablet. Um, but yeah, just it's so comfortable in the hands. I mean, it'll be a long time before we get to actually, have long extended sessions with it in handheld mode. So it still remains to be seen if we'll need accessories to play in handheld mode and make it comfortable. But first
Go get her,
impressions,
Butters.
it does seem better.
Cats are such
Yeah,
assholes.
I was
One of them goes
particularly
crazy, and then the
impressed
other
with the
one just sits there
screen.
and stares. It's like, go
Obviously,
play.
it's a much larger screen at 7.9 inches, up from 6.2. But beyond that, it actually had a remarkable contrast ratio to it. Like blacks looked very inky on this display, despite it being an LCD. It being a 1080p display means that
So
it looked
something
sharper than
interesting is
ever.
that I was watching
Having variable.
Digital Foundry talk about it, and they said that in order for the screen to have HDR, uh, it probably has a mini LED like backlight. So it's an LCD screen, right? But it's got mini LEDs for the lights and the darks. So it's not an OLED, but see, I think people are kind of still stuck on the whole LCD OLED divide. There's been a lot of advances with screen technology in the last like 5, 6 years. There's these things called mini LEDs now, and you can use a mini LED as the backlight source instead of just one big light as a back source or as a backlight source. Um, and mini LEDs can give you that OLED super dark and super contrasty light while keeping an LCD panel. And LCDs are better at high refresh rates. Um, so I don't think this is going to be a like. I think people were kind of clowning on the Switch 2. My cat's going insane. What are you doing, Tort? Go get her, Butters. Go get her. Go beat her up. You guys are about to see some feline violence. Um, I think people were kind of clowning on the Switch 2 not being all that great. You probably can't hear that. She's going nuts, just running around being insane. She's jumping on the walls and stuff. What are you doing, Tort? Go get her, Butters. No, I don't want you. Here comes old goofball. Come on. Say hello to the internet, bud. Say hello to the internet. Say hello. Stop stuck in my ear. Go get Tort Tort. Go get Tort Tort. That's stuck on my ear and stuff. Whole reason I got him was to entertain my other cat. He's like more of a problem than she ever was. That's the new Pro controller. And people were kind of clowning on the Switch too, but I think the display. I think it's going to be a huge hit. People are just going to love it. It's a huge upgrade for the Switch. It is a little expensive, but I thought about this yesterday when after the direct was over. It's like it's $500 for the console itself and Mario Kart World, the bundle. And to me, that's an obvious purchase because it's gonna be like $80 for the game by itself, and we're all gonna get Mario Kart. Yeah, so fight. I don't know. I might have to go break up my cat in a minute. I want them to like play, but not just beat the shit out of each other. But yes, $500 for the bundle. Which again, I think it's smarter to get the bundle. And then the if you have Switch Online, the Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild upgrades are free. So that's day one on June 5th, if you can get one. Of course. Day one, you got Mario Kart, you got the Switch 2 itself, you've got two Zelda games running at 4K 60, $500. That's, I mean, you can complain about that, I guess. What the hell do you want? You just want a free console? You want it to be $300? Like, dude, like the world is going to shit economically. Like, considering they can get it out the door for $500 is actually pretty good. Like, I mean, when I go to the grocery store, I spend like $200 like every single time. I don't get anything. I get like some eggs. I get meat, and eggs. That'll be $200, please. It's like I don't know. Like the world just it's insane right now, and I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. Like Bernie always says, things things keep getting more expensive, but wages aren't increasing, and that's the goddamned truth. It's absurd. Like people are getting paid the same that they were getting paid in like 1995, 30 years later. Uh, it's crazy. Like the working class is getting so stiffed constantly, all the time. I don't know why there isn't like a populist uprising. Like there really needs to be one. Like we need to just be like France, and like when things go to shit, just go in the streets and burn cars, blow stuff up, Molotov things until the government actually responds. Uh, but in America, we're just like, just eat potato chips and it'll all blow over. But whatever. Not a politics thing, not a politics stream. I think the stream is pretty much just me uh, and me drawing and thinking out loud. It's honestly kind of something I do anyways. But I don't. What do you want? You guys go away. Go away. Go play with her. No, go play with her. No, go play with her. Go play with Tortort. I do have a door to this place, but go play. Hang on, I'm gonna find their little toy and give them catnip. And hunt around for that. You can probably still hear me because I got my headset on. Where's their toy at? Flood here. Nashville had like tornadoes. It was just, it was wild last night. We had tornadoes everywhere, just constant storms. We got like a flood warning. Gotta get you guys some more food, don't I? Fuck off, cats! Jesus! Come here. Ow. That'll keep them entertained for a little while. They like walk right in front of me as I'm doing stuff. I'm so tall, dude. I'm 6'3". These little fucking 6-inch tall cats. They walk right in front of my feet, step on their tails and stuff all the time. Anyways, I gave them some catnip. Hopefully that'll make them go insane for a little while. Yeah, if it just started raining. I cannot show you this, but not without turning my laptop all the way around. But yeah, it's coming to flood outside. It might be like a literal biblical flood. Like for real. Like this is a 2-story house. I can just live on the second story, I guess. And we have a crawl space too, so it's not like on the ground. Still, my car is outside. It might get a little flooded. Nashville is a pretty decent city though. Like I mean, there's a river nearby that has like I think a tributary and like a there's a giant pump out there like on the river. I think they can pump water out of the city and into the river if they need to. But if it floods like, Asheville, not Nashville, but Asheville, North Carolina flooded, what, like 6 months ago? That's another thing that's going on. No one gives a shit about climate change anymore. Like that's like a taboo to even talk about that. Like, dude, it's literally happening right now. It's funny how stupid we are. That's the thing is like people talk about like if you care about if you care about politics or whatever, why don't you get involved? It's like I we're so goddamn stupid. Like humanity is just so stupid. It's like get involved and do what? Like get into the mud with the other pigs and like fight about it? Like pigs and shit, that whole thing. Like they love it there. They love the swamp. The alligators love the swamp. I'm not gonna go into that shit. I want it all just I just kind of want like a hard reset of America, honestly. Um, just a full like not like a revolution necessarily, but like just to take the cartridge out, blow in it, put it back in, reset it. 1776. Let's get the whole slavery and indigenous people stuff straight this time. Like let's not perform genocides, and then just stick to the actual Constitution instead of all this bullshit we're doing constantly now. Uh, but yeah, I really feel like we've lost our way. I think we're like just 2 steps away from Russia right now. Putin. A lot of people don't realize how bad Russia is. Putin came into office in the year 2000. It is 2025. You know, like I was a kid when he came into office, and now I'm an ancient being. And that guy is still in office. He's never left. Um, and yet our government is taking his side when he invades another country and just letting him do whatever he wants. It's absurd. But again, not a politics podcast, not a politics stream. It's just, constantly ongoing. I can't stand how stupid we all are. I have a coalition of friends that, like my wife spent some time in Japan. She was there in grad school, and I have some friends that just visited Japan. And Japan's a pretty conservative, kind of strange country, and you really need to learn the language because it's pretty insular, I guess is the right word. Um, like people who live in Japan, like they speak Japanese, they don't really learn anything else. They don't really deal with other cultures and stuff. It's a very multicultural place now, but I don't think they really like a lot of the, you know, Westerners that have moved over there. Um, but that is all to say, like we could probably just move to Japan. It's cheaper now. The yen to dollar ratio is a pretty good deal right now. Probably won't be for much longer. Like today is like I got some Nvidia stock still. It's dog shit because of Trump's tariff bullshit. Don't get me started, internet. Don't get me started. Let's just let's just talk about video games.
Refresh rate and 120 hertz on the portable display is also just
120 hertz,
mind-blowing.
man.
And HDR. Yeah, there's so much tech crammed into this thing that honestly, in an interesting way, it feels like Nintendo is kind of driving back towards wanting to be on the cutting edge of things. That the technology that they've put in here is enough to make it feel like it's not so tangibly far behind current gen offerings as to feel dated.
And we'll talk
That's
more
another
about
point
the
too,
the
is that
games.
I don't really know where this sits. Like Nintendo does, they kind of dance to their own song. Um, because like the let's just go back a couple of generations. The PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One launched almost the exact same time in 2013. The Wii U had launched in 2012 and was vastly inferior to both of those consoles. There's some good games on the Wii U, and most of them have been put on the Switch at this point, but there's some good games on the Wii U. Um, but the it was vastly inferior to the PS4 and the Xbox One, and then of course the PS4 got a refresh, the Pro, and the Xbox One got the X. Uh, what was it called? The Xbox One. It's called the One X, right? Um, and both of those boxes are like still pretty decently powerful even now. Um, like you could probably play a lot of like current games on those consoles. But the Wii U is just completely out of the question. And then the Switch came out in 2017, right after those refreshes, right after the Pro and the X. Um, and then the PS5 and the Series X comes out in 2020, and now it's 2025, and the Switch is coming out with a new version, a Switch 2, and we're probably nowhere near the PlayStation 6. I think the PS6 will probably happen in like what, like 2028, maybe 2027. We're probably 2 or 3 years at least from then. And they just had to refresh themselves so that the PS4 or PS5 Pro just came out like what, 6 months ago. I don't think it's been that long. It's April now, so yeah, it has been about 6 months. Um, they kind of just march to their own beat. So it's like where it sits in comparison to the PlayStation 5, it's definitely not as powerful as the PS5. I'm curious as to, they haven't really talked about how much like RAM it's got. I know it's an NVIDIA chip. That's the advantage to the Switch is that they have a deal with NVIDIA where they make their own custom Tegra chip, which Tegra is I could talk really in depth about this shit. Uh, Tegra chips are hang on, I got a notification. It's nothing important. Tegra chips are mobile chipsets made by NVIDIA. They're APUs. Um, and Nintendo essentially sourced those chips because they're very reliable. They're not very powerful. I think they actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's a 2015 chip. So it's a 10-year-old chip that's in the Switch. But Nintendo knows it well. It sips power. It never really degrades. It's really nice to the battery. Someone made this point. The Switch One, like, uh, even the launch unit, even the original Switch One, still has really good battery. You can charge it all the time, leave it in the dock all the time, take it out, and have like 4 or 5 hours of battery on pretty much any game that you want to play. That's actually really impressive. So they know their hardware, and I don't know what the chipset is for the Switch 2, but um, I'm looking forward to finding out what it is. I think Digital Foundry mentioned that they know what it is. Uh, I'm curious if there's 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, and if it's DDR4 or 3 or 5. Is there even 5? I don't even know. I do know it's essentially an NVMe 3.0 for the storage. Um, Hopefully, games won't get like drastically larger because that's another problem with the Switch is that they're going to give you 256 gigs of onboard storage, but Switch One games are getting to the point where, like Wolfenstein, for instance, is like, I think it's 17 gigs, and the original Switch only came with 32 gigs of storage. Otherwise, you had to get an SD card. And granted, SD cards, you can get like a terabyte of that now. So it kind of solves that problem. See, they're going with yeah, a video, like fucking fucking Photoshop just did that thing again. I have to kill Photoshop and then bring it back up. This is my desktop background is Onlook Island from Wind Waker, and if you click next, it transitions from like nighttime to daytime. It's pretty cool. Anyways, I'll shut up. I need to work. I'm gonna work for about 10 dedicated minutes. Shut the fuck up about politics and other things, and just kind of work on this for a moment. I want to try to at least get like the inks done down to here. I need to clean up the lines a lot. It's hard to explain, but this is kind of a higher resolution image than a lot of the flowless stuff I work on, and my line work is going to be kind of messy because of that. If I can just get the inks done, I can start painting it uh, probably this evening or tomorrow sometime, and I'll be pretty much done after that. But I'm gonna shut up and just play this video, and then probably just abruptly end the stream in about 20-30 minutes.
Specifically in other videos, but I remember walking up to Mario Kart World, and we played it on TV first before playing it in handheld. And I remember walking up to the station and starting the game and being like, "Whoa, that's really sharp. That is not what I'd expect on Nintendo Switch One." Seeing Mario Kart it was 1440p, right?
Yeah, Nintendo confirmed we were playing. The demo we played was 1440p.
It looked incredible.
Yeah, it's really hard to understate just how impressive Mario Kart World looks in motion when you're actually playing it too. Because it's one thing to watch it in a direct and to watch a trailer where you can pause and scrutinize and look at things very closely. It's quite another to be actively engaged in a race against people where you're focusing on the gameplay first and then the visuals second. I was just enthralled with how Mario Kart World performed.
I'm so looking forward to that.
On the Switch 2, to say nothing of when we did get to play handheld.
I am a Mario
And it's
Kart
crazy
motherfucker.
too, because Mario Kart World it's 24 players, it's a big world, but it's still like I don't recall experiencing a dropped frame.
Yeah, Mario Kart World performed flawlessly, which is what I was hoping to see from a console that is dropping in 2 months. This Mario Kart World is the launch game for the Switch 2, and so I was excited to see
I am
that
going
it was
to play the
polished
absolute
to what I
bonkers
would
out of
call
that one.
The Nintendo level of perfection, right? The same performance that we saw with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which of course is another completely rock solid game.
Yeah, and looking at a different game, Metroid Prime 4, which we got to play in 1080p 120 frames per second, just blew my mind. It looked fantastic playing at 120 FPS.
Yeah, Metroid Prime was not on my list of games that were going to be 120 FPS.
So I don't have
games.
I don't have a
I
120
said
hertz
previously on the weekend
display anymore. I have an old projector. All my stuff is hooked up through projectors downstairs. I essentially have this set up, and this I pretty much just use for art and doing this kind of stuff. And then downstairs I've got a projector set up, and I switched to a 4K 60 projector a couple years ago. the ViewSonic really good. Um, and my backup projector, which is still in good shape, but it's a 1080p 120 hertz projector, and there's just not a lot of 120 hertz content out there. I guess I could hook it up uh, somehow. I don't know if I can have dual projectors set up, but I could hook it back up just for the Switch 2, just to play 120 hertz stuff. I don't know where I would even put that. This is not that big of a house. Anyways, I'm gonna take off in about 5 minutes. Let me see how much work I can get done in 5 minutes.
Nintendo that I thought we were definitely going to have 1080p 120 FPS games, but Metroid Prime was so far down on the possibility list for me. I thought we would have seen, frankly, Mario Kart World well before we saw Metroid Prime 4, because that seems to be a title that is meant to push, visuals fairly strongly. But I was super impressed to see what Retro's done there. Just the overall quality of the games that were on offer at the Switch 2 premiere event were impressive. Like I recaptured that sense of being unable to believe what I was seeing, even though I was in the room seeing and experiencing these things.
And we got to play in a variety of different ways. We got to play some games in handheld. We got to play some games with the Switch Joy-Con grip, which I thought felt quite a bit more
Yeah, for
comfortable than
fighting.
the old one.
Yeah, the new Joy-Con grip. One thing you pointed out was that it actually has. I think Nintendo is calling them GL and GR buttons. These kind of paddle handle
Let me
buttons, which
just,
is
instead of
becoming
like
more of a
taking
thing
off, let me
in the
let
pro
me go
controller
check on my
space. You see
cats,
them
and
on the DualSense Edge
I'm
now.
just gonna set this to.
They're on the Switch 2 Pro controller
I'll
as
set it to be right back. Actually, be right back. Yeah, stop fighting. Stop. Okay, I'm back. Cats don't let me. They don't let me live my life. Well, they have the GameCube controller being shown off too. I'm super curious about that one. I'm uh I'm an N64 guy. That's my favorite Nintendo up until the Switch came out. Uh, but that being said, like I would like a really good quality uh, GameCube controller. I've got two of them. If you're curious about decent ones that you can get like right now, and probably for fairly cheap, there's one called the Xlean, Exlene. Might be hard to find that one now because I bought that one a long time ago. It looks just like the official one. It's purple. I've compared it like right next to an OEM uh, actual GameCube controller, and I can't tell the difference. A button feels the same, stick feels the same, and then I've got another one called a Doyoki. You can find 128 KB videos about the Doyoki. It's essentially a wave bird, but it's you can split it apart, put it on Switch. Also really nice, not quite as like authentic, but to me it feels exactly the same, and it's got back buttons, which is nice. Um, I My favorite controller is like for the Switch for playing like retro stuff is it's called the Retro Bit Tribute 64. That thing's amazing. It's got the one of my favorite sticks of all time. That's my Mario Kart device, and it'll probably be my Mario Kart device with Mario Kart World as well, unless Mario Kart World might have right stick camera control. I'm actually really curious to find that out. If it does, uh, I'll probably use my FlyDigi for playing games. See, they haven't really talked about that. Can you use third-party controllers? The Switch was great for third-party controllers because all you needed was a Bluetooth chip built into it. That's it. It's just you used a standard Bluetooth connection. That's it. Um, uh, the uh, the PlayStation 5 uses a proprietary. I don't even know if it's Bluetooth. I think it might be a Wi-Fi signal actually. But yeah, it's hard to use anything with the PS5. It's not a that you don't have to get like a Brooks adapter for. Anyways, I'm a big controller nerd. I'm going to try to stop making tangents. This is actually really interesting to me though.
as well, which is another interesting piece of hardware I really want to get to talk about. Um, overall, the Joy-Con grip is far more satisfying this time, and I just can't get enough of that magnetic snap. Like it feels more like we're getting closer to the console actually making that sound from the commercials.
It's crazy because the when you bring the Joy-Con up close and it does like the magnetic pull kicks in,
I kind of
there's a
thought that they
lot
were
of
going to
force.
call the Switch to the Nintendo Snap. Uh, don't know if Snap's got a really good connotation to it because you can snap it in half, but it is like a the magnetic thing is a more satisfying kick now. Or the Nintendo Click or the Nintendo Snap. They did make a game called Pokemon Snap one time. So I mean, it's not the worst connotation, but now Switch still makes a lot of sense because you can still switch from you know different ways of playing it. Um, Makes me curious as to why didn't the Steam Deck why doesn't it come with a dock in the box, and why isn't there a stand on the back of it? It seems like that would be a if you're going to try to make a handheld in a Nintendo Switch world, why not completely copy it? All these handheld PCs like the ROG and all the other ones. There's so many of them now. The Claw, MSI Claw. What's the other one? Uh, I've forgotten. There's so many of them now. All I've got is the Steam Deck, and like I said, like it's a white Steam Deck. I'm just kind of a sucker for if you make a if you make a white piece of electronics, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna be buying it. But yeah, they could have called that the Nintendo Snap instead of the Switch 2, and I think that would have been a pretty good name.
It's not a weak connection by any means.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people are going to have trouble believing until they actually get the opportunity to try one themselves. But I remember feeling a bit of, quite frankly, almost fear, like nervousness about when it was getting closer. I was like, oh, it's going to yank out of my hand and pull onto the console, like in the animations. And while it's obviously not quite that forceful, it pulls itself in very, very forcefully when you're holding it. It's impossible to connect that thing wrong.
It's snug in a way that the original Switch Joy-Cons aren't. Because
Yeah.
like when you're holding the Switch One, there's some give. Like when you're trying to twist it, and it doesn't feel good. There's a creakiness to it that makes it feel like it could break. I did not have that sensation with Switch 2.
Yeah, if anything, with the Joy-Con attached, Switch 2 feels like a Switch Lite. It feels like these controls are fully embedded.
Like one solid unit.
Exactly. Yeah. My Switch One, heck, every Switch One I've owned, there's always been that little bit of play in the Joy-Con connection where it can move up or down to a concerning degree, in my opinion. There's none of that here. There's no movement that is unintended with those Joy-Con, and when it's fully together, snapped into one unit, it looks like it was built that way.
Before we get a little further into the controls, I thought the kickstand was interesting. Like, it's so thin and it looks so flimsy, like almost like the Switch One kickstand. But there's so much resistance in that kickstand that you can really dial in how much you want it to bend. That viewing angle, like if you set it where you want it, it's not moving. It's going to stay there.
I was very impressed by the kickstand, and I shared your concerns about it because I looked at it and I was like, that is a very skinny kickstand for a very chonky device. And I was deeply impressed by just how much I was able to, like you said, dial that in. When one of the first things I did when I got to hold the Switch 2 was I pulled the kickstand out and I just put my palm on it and pushed it down, and it went all the way down, and then I slightly pulled it up, and it every point at which I didn't have to fine tune the placement of it at all, and it was on not like an ideal surface either. It was like a plastic light box with light shooting up out of it. Not something someone would want to rest a Switch on, generally speaking, and expect the kickstand to stay. But I was adjusting it by like just random amounts, trying to see if I could make it flop down, and it never did.
Yeah, it's really impressive. I thought it was funny when you were first getting your hands on the Switch 2 hardware, you couldn't find the SD card slot.
Yeah, the SD card slot is hidden right underneath the kickstand, which is where I expected it to be. But on the Switch One and the Switch OLED, and even the Switch Lite, it's in a much more obvious location. Like there's a deep groove in the back of it, where the SD card is a tiny speck against it comparatively. Whereas this one, that opening is just the size of an SD card, like just small enough to put a micro SD Express in there, which for those of you that don't know, micro SD Express is the same size as the Switch micro SD. It's just faster. So it's just a tiny little slot. And in the environment we were in, because the lighting was kind of poor. Like
Yeah.
you'll see in our video footage that's on the screen right now, probably that we were shooting against dimly lit conditions in most cases. So it was hard to see anything against the black body of the Switch when you had a light shining right in your face. But yeah, Brandon
Yeah, it's
spotted
got
it, and it was
questionable lighting.
it's just right there. There's very it feels like a very no nonsense design. You have the little pops of color that are playful on the Joy-Con rails, but outside of that, it's just a black handheld monster.
Buddy.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. I think the build quality on the system feels excellent so far. So that's of no concern. This isn't your play school console anymore. This feels like a proper, you know, device.
Yeah, it feels like a grown-up version of the Switch. Like this is
Feels like a
for
grown-up
people
version.
that have grown up with the console and now have disposable income. The Switch 2
Dude, I was
feels
already
extremely
grown
premium,
up when the
and I
Switch
would say
came out.
that it feels much nicer than any other
Who are these
handheld,
people that were
including
not
the
grown
PC
up 8
handhelds
years ago?
that I've gotten my hands on. I would toss my Steam Deck out for this thing. I would obviously upgrade from the Switch one.
Who are
It's
these kids?
the materials used here feel like they're of a whole other class than what was used for the Switch One. Obviously, it's still plastic, and I I think the screen is also plastic. I couldn't really tell, and Nintendo didn't provide any details on if they
Yeah,
were
I'm curious
using
about that kind of
glass this
stuff.
time around.
What is the
But I will
body
say,
made
like,
out of? Because the OLED was metal, and I'm pretty sure the OLED has glass for the front. Although, it's debatable as glass or plastic's better for a touch enabled video game console. Um, I don't know. You also want it to be lightweight. Um, the OLED Steam Deck has etched glass, um, and it's supposedly like that to make it the uh, the light refraction is better, and it actually is like in practice. Like as you can see from my glasses, I'm getting the window over here reflected. The Steam OLED, I think, doesn't really reflect light that same way. The light is more dispersed or absorbed, some weird physics thing. Um, don't know if I can explain the physics of that, but it does work in practice. Like you can take it outside, and it just all you see is the game. You don't see the light bouncing off the screen. Um, if they're gonna do that, I'm not a big mobile guy. Like I really mostly play just on my projector. Really don't care about it being portable, but it is nice. Like this weekend, for instance, I'm going out of town. I'm probably not going to bring anything with me, but um, whenever I go on a trip, I do like to bring usually the Switch. Switch is kind of my go-to portable device. Uh, I have a lot of them, but that one, you really can just toss it in a bag, and you've got like every Mario, every Xenoblade, every Zelda, pretty much anything you could possibly want to play. I like playing Star Fox on it, honestly. That's a game, man. Like the Switch 2 needs a Star Fox game. Whatever happened to Star Fox? They just don't make those anymore. I got a new Donkey Kong coming out. Probably gonna be getting that. Where be Star Fox, bro?
it had a very
Let me
pleasing
finish these boots
look
up
to
and then
it.
I'm gonna
Like
call it.
colors really pop on that screen.
Yeah. When you were playing Tears of the Kingdom in handheld mode, the just the Great Sky Islands, I remember feeling like, I don't know, there was something about the warm colors that didn't feel the same as what I experienced on my television, and in a good way. Like those deep warm colors, like I really got the feeling of that location because of that.
Yeah, and I imagine part of that is due to the fact that built-in display supports HDR, as we mentioned before, and that's going to provide you with a depth of color that just frankly isn't there in other instances. So I think that we're really in a scenario where it's just going to be this really cool time to be kind of a techie person, like if you're into gear, if you're into the specs and what's under the hood of these, there's a lot to really like here. I think that Nintendo has absolutely smashed it out of the park on the hardware front. One thing I did find strange is, of all the things, because we got to see, I'd say most things, they did not let us put our hands on a dock at any point.
No, I mean, I didn't even see a dock out that I didn't see a dock that wasn't behind glass.
Yeah, it was. I understand why Nintendo at an event like this would lock up the consoles, because this is by the time you're listening to this or watching this, this will be open to the public. Same exact setup, just shorter time. They're not going to have these people in here for 10 hours. But it felt weird to me that we couldn't just pick one up. I mean, because they had at various points throughout the venue Switch 2s and docks and accessories, pro controllers under glass that we could look at, and we filmed plenty of, but we couldn't, just ask them to
I wonder why they couldn't
lift that up, and we could just pick one up.
I want
to
to
real quick.
hold a pro
And maybe that's
controller in
just
my hand.
something they didn't. I don't think there's anything nefarious there. I think they just didn't think anyone.
Pro controllers
would
are my
want to.
favorite ones, by the way.
Yeah, I mean,
Of
I
all
can't
the
see there
ones
being
that
a
I've
lot of
got.
reason to play with the dock, other than wanting to see that back shell coming off. And honestly, one of the things about the Switch One I kind of hate, that original Switch dock, that pull down tray that holds, that hides the cords and everything. I hated that thing. I hated it so much.
Yeah, I would say that I'm not a fan of even the OLED dock design.
Me neither. Yeah.
I don't think Nintendo ever got it quite refined enough. And it certainly accounts for maybe, only one type of setup, right? Like if your cables drift off to the right of your console, if they need to go left, you're in a different situation. So I'm curious to see how the Switch 2's dock might mitigate some of those issues that people certainly have had with the Switch 1 dock over the years. But I have to say, everything I did see, I was very impressed by. I didn't have any issues with any of the design choices or anything. Do I wish they could have gone OLED instead of LCD? Yes, but that LCD is breathtaking, and I really can't praise it enough.
Breathtaking, guys.
I still have a lot of questions about it.
You're going to not be able to breathe.
What I saw here today was so deeply impressive that I just can't wait to get my hands on this hardware again. But I do think we can't really fully talk about hardware without talking about its interplay with software. And I don't think there was really any better game that really illustrated the interplay between the software and the hardware than the admittedly kind of funny Switch 2 Tour, which we
it's taking forever.
Oh, Switch 2 Welcome Tour. There was a reaction in the room to that specific piece of software when we found out it was paid, which I thought was funny. But we did get to play it for a little bit, and you know what? Yeah, it is exactly what it says it is. It is teaching you about the Switch 2 and all the ways that it's cool.
Now my cats are asleep.
Yeah, it's an
Girls being insane, and now they're
technical
asleep.
deep dive into the process behind producing a console like the Switch 2. And I actually, on a certain level, really appreciate that. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I am going to pick up Switch 2 Welcome Tour when it comes out because I like that kind of stuff. I like the way they get really into the weeds on some of these things. My favorite thing in particular was a demo in which you played level 1-1 of Mario Brothers, and they used it as an illustration of just how big a 4K image is. Because they explained that each screen in Mario was 256 pixels wide, and that you can get through the entirety of 1-1 without reaching the 4K pixel limit.
That's what I'm staring at.
And to me, that was really
That's
kind of
the little
funny. Like they
shit
were just like, yeah, keep it. It just
that's
the
constantly
screen
ruining my
draws
life.
this narrow ribbon of pixels across a 4K image, and you reach the end of one and you still haven't fully gotten it yet.
Huh?
So I thought it was really neat to see that. It was a
What?
really fun way of kind of
You look up so you
visualizing
knew what I was
just
talking
how
about.
much higher the resolution
Huh?
of the Switch 2 is. But there was another
What?
demo that used mouse mode that was also
What?
particularly interesting.
Is that the one where you're the UFO and you're dodging the
Come here, bud.
spiky
Yes.
balls?
My
Uh,
son.
I
My
That
boy.
was a surprisingly
All right,
fun
I'm gonna
little
call it.
game.
These little guys need some
It's a
attention.
great way to introduce mouse
I think I
mode.
want to
And
get something to
speaking
eat
of
too. I
mouse
haven't
mode,
eaten anything. I had a
the
protein bar when I got
Joy-Con,
up, and that's it.
it just works. It
Um,
just glides. It feels smooth.
I will work on this. I'm gonna kill this thing. I'm probably gonna work on this off stream and clean up these lines, and then hopefully tomorrow I can start painting it. Let me zoom out so you can see what I'm dealing with. And again, really all I got for this whole project was let me bring this one up. Yeah. Really all I got for this whole project was uh combat boots that had S and B on it. And um I decided to make the S and the B be like projected off the back, and I want it to be red and then like kind of taper off. I've been really getting into like what is that called? Like Baroque Rembrandt esque uh camera obscura. Like I like to have a color and then make it get gradually darker, like a gradient. With him, gradually darker, gradually darker, 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 darker. It's just, but I like to do like a gradient, um, from like really bright to like really dark. So that's what I'm thinking. Like, just imagine like light source, the S and the B are lit up, and her boots are kind of a reddish tint because of that. I'm probably gonna paint it like a solid color first, and then I'm gonna work on the lighting tricks. But like her legs will be, uh, you know, normal skin color, but um, the red will be highlighting them. So like flashes of red on her thighs and stuff, and then her skirt will be kind of dark, but this could be lit up so that like it's kind of a transparent. It'll be cool. And then I'm just gonna do like a cyberpunk city or something in the distance, and maybe put an S and B there as well. Um, we'll see. I have no idea exactly what I'm doing. I don't have a plan. I don't have a plan. Um, it's just chaos. But anyways, thanks for joining us. Been streaming for almost an hour and a half. Look at this, bud. Who are these people? Who are these people? Is that you? Do you see yourself? Hmm. He doesn't give a shit. Trying to make some biscuits. He doesn't care. Butters doesn't give a shit. Okay, bye everybody.